And we're joined by Amanda Poon, the Green Party candidate in Kelowna-Mission. Thanks for talking to us today. So how do you feel going into an election where it looks like likely the Liberals win, maybe the NDP, and there you are, the Green Party candidate? What motivates you?
Well, the Green Party is often described as the underdog party. Sonia is the underdog leader, and I definitely identify with that. I've always rooted for the underdog, and when I heard this election was called in the manner that it was called, very suddenly, very strategically on the part of John Horgan, and when I heard that no one else was really running against the BC Liberal candidate Renee, the NDP themselves have put up a paper candidate who's not even campaigning. So when I heard that this election was going to be handed over without a democratic election, I decided that I would run, even though it has been a challenging sprint, because I believe that these positions of power should be earned in a democratic electoral process.
We're at an interesting time. We just come out of this phase where we had this government, which was NDP propped up by the Green Party. So here was a time when the Greens really had at least one little hand on the seat of power. And yet, in the polls, the Greens have declined just a bit. Why is that, do you think?
Well, I don't know why. Well, I think the pandemic has influenced the perception of the NDP government, considering we need to consider that they are following the health orders of Dr. Bonnie Henry, and I think most parties would adhere, and they must adhere to what she says. But I think the NDP have taken advantage of this moment where their popularity has escalated. But I think the Greens have shown that they are ready to govern.
What's something that the Green Party would like to see happen? What direction would the Greens like us to go in that if we just leave it to the NDP won't happen?
So the Green position is that we are neither left or right. We are not interested in lobbying. One of our key pieces of legislation was to eliminate corporate and union donations to election campaigns. We want to represent evidence-based solutions that serve the greatest number of people. We want a community-based solutions, not lobbyist-based solutions. So the direction that the Greens want to take our province and our city is a centrist path, really, that brings the best, because there are good ideas on the NDP side, there are some good ideas on the BC Liberal side, but because we have had this two-party system, we lose a lot, and we end up with the NDP rushing things. We end up with the BC Liberals suggesting ideas that have not been researched, and ultimately it's the taxpayers and the citizens who suffer the effects of those groups not doing their homework. And that's what we bring: evidence-based, well-researched, and nonpartisan.
How are we doing in terms of our part to reduce this freight train of global warming that's coming down the tracks? What would the Green Party say about how well we're doing there? And you are the Green Party. Shouldn't you be pushing us more in that direction?
Well, we are. And so the platform was only released this week, our final platform, but even in the last 3 years, the Green Party have been adamant about staying on track to meet our targets for reducing emissions. And we are not on track whatsoever. So there's all kinds of measurable targets in terms of where we need to be. 2050 is a year that for me is really personal, because I'll be retiring. I'll be 65 and my stepson will be 40. And so that's real to me. And we're preparing for our retirement. I've started to prepare for my personal retirement and for the future of our son. And so to see the government failing to prepare their end of these big scale climate change and environmental concerns is something the Green Party is definitely focused on. And we do have a lot of things that we can do starting tomorrow if we were elected to get that going.
So, I mean, let's face it, you might not win this election, but someone can vote Green, and what statement does it make? If you end up getting a surprisingly large number of votes, what message does it send?
Well, Kelowna has had record low voting turnout, and so there's been a lack of hope. So even if the Green Party only achieves some more ground but doesn't actually win, I think that will wake a lot of people up. There's also a lot of, those are my zoo here. There's also a lot of younger voters, and there's also a lot of young people who can't vote yet. And I think they're going to be watching this election. A lot of I don't know if we call them Gen Z now or where we
I'm
are
not sure
starting
what letter
over
we're on right now. I think
starting
you're right.
over. But I think people are stuck at home. We're not outside. We're on social media, and there's a lot of young teens that have come forward and sent me messages of support and enthusiasm, saying I can't vote yet, but I'm watching and I'm learning, and I'm really excited to see what happens here. And so I think it's always a good idea to participate in democracy, to vote, to run, to volunteer, do whatever you can to make the things that you care about a reality. Because if you don't, then you'll find yourself in the state that we found ourselves today, with looming crises: climate, the pandemic, the opioid crisis, the housing crisis, affordability, and if you pull the lens back, everything that's happening in the world around us. This last 7 months, I don't know if I was the only one watching the world and the news just in horror, like what's happening. And so I think just running in this election and seeing if we can get some support for the Greens will be a really positive thing for Kelowna.
Well, terrific. Thank you for your contribution to the political process and for talking to us today.
Yeah, thank you.